Developments in Iran, where you have US President Trump, exchanging threats with senior Iranian officials today as a protest continues, a protest movement into its sixth day about the collapse of the currency, about conditions of the cost of living, talk about food prices rising by up to 70%. And of course, added to that, the international tensions between the two countries after America bombed Iranian nuclear sites back in June. At least 7 people have been killed so far. It's reporting the violence surrounding these demonstrations. And that's mostly happened in the west of the country. As I say, it's sparked in part by the collapse of Iran's real currency, but it's increased to see crowds chanting anti-government slogans as well. Let's bring in Douglas Herbert, our international affairs commentator. Good to see you. Happy New Year to you, Doug.
Happy New Year.
Let's start with what's going on. First of all, this exchange, President Trump threatening to get involved and the Iranians firing back.
Yeah, just when things were already extremely tense, right? Yeah, as you correctly said, some of the worst unrest. You've seen mass protests, mass street protests in 3 years in Iran. You have the President of the United States weighing in which is what is being seen there as an escalatory tweet. And literally what he said, if they, the state, the authorities continue to kill, and violently kill, as he put it, peaceful protesters, he's basically going to come to their rescue. Those were his words on his Truth Social network. Now, you can imagine that those words did not fall with the dull thud in Iran. They provoked quite an outcry among a lot of the top officialdom, beginning with the former parliamentary speaker, Ali Larijani, whose name we've heard a lot about in the past. He still holds high positions. He's the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council now. He basically said on X outright that this is Trump stoking the U.S. and Israel in cahoots, one with the other, stoking tensions in Iran. That is, he is explicitly saying that this is part of a strategy to stir things up even more, bring it to more of a boil. And the context obviously can't go ignored here, right? You had basically back in June, you had what Israel called Trump called it the 12-day war, in which the U.S. helped Israel. The U.S. launched airstrikes against military sites, 3 military sites in Iran over that 12-day period, also hitting at military infrastructure. Iran is still reportedly reeling from that, rebuilding, a lot of damage done at the time. Iran, in response at the time, you might not remember, this is lesser remembered, but they did retaliate 3 days later by launching missiles at the Al Udeid, U.S. Al Udeid base, military base in Qatar. So obviously, when you say an open wound, fresh tensions, escalating tensions, it's all still there. June is not that long ago. And into this context where you still have Europe recently having reimposed sanctions on Iran back in September at the UN, actually at the behest of France, Germany, and the UK, and then the U.S. sanctions obviously still in place since 2018 when Trump unilaterally withdrew from what was then, by many experts' evaluation, a working nuclear agreement that had been brokered under the Obama administration. All of that is adding up to a volatile mix. And Trump steps in and says this. I'll note that even as Larijani, the former parliamentary speaker, said that it's the U.S. and Israel stoking tensions. He didn't provide any evidence of that assertion. But you had another official basically saying, and this was a reference to Trump saying, I'll come to the rescue of the peaceful protesters. Another official in Iran said, Iranians know all too well what's happened in the past when America has, quote, come to the rescue of protesters from Iraq to Afghanistan to Gaza. So it's more than just an exchange of words. They're firing shots across, rhetorical shots for now, across the bow at each other, but it definitely is escalating things.
And you've been monitoring the situation inside Iran. If we look and rewind 6 days, we go to this electronics market in Tehran, we see protesters, tradesmen starting to protest, not just the cost of living, which was mentioned, the currency collapse as well, but also for sudden spreading as well to universities, more than 10 around the country, spreading to the provinces. You have what's known in Iran as the bazaar, the merchants who supported, the fall of the Shah back in 79. They've supported the regime in the past. Just talk to us, the how it started, how it's going question, and how it's being handled by the regime.
Well, you traced it all very correctly to the scene of the original crime, if you will, or what sparked these protests. You basically had jewelry traders in the bazaar in Tehran, in the capital, in the bazaar in Tehran, jewelry traders and currency exchange traders. So a small group of merchants in the Tehran bazaar, basically shuttering their shops in protest at what has been a rapid fall. It's a slide in the rial, Iran's currency, and then the accompanying rapid shooting up, skyrocketing of prices. Now, the currency thing didn't come out of nowhere, right? When you say the currency depreciated, it's been falling rapidly and prices have been some say it's artificially created by the government itself, because you had last month, you had the central bank of Iran actually ordering that the currency, the rial, be devalued. I'm not going to go do a deep dive into economics here, but basically when you devalue a country's currency, it helps exporters, those who sell their products abroad, and it hurts importers, those who bring products into the country. Now, if you're asking the immediate economic trigger of these protests with those jewelry traders and the currency exchange traders in the Tehran market that then spread outwards to the universities, it's this devaluation, because the exporters tend to be the larger state enterprises, the more affluent, bigger firms. It's the small guys, the shopkeepers, the bazaari that you were talking about, just the merchants in bazaars throughout Iran that are the importers. They're not big exporters, they're importers, and they're really hit by this very much.
Doug, in the 30 seconds or so that we have, it's very hard to predict where this is going next. Worth saying, actually, the president, Masoud Pezeshkian, giving some kind of sense of moderation, at least saying that he's aware of wrongdoing.
Yeah, I think, Gavin, you chose the apt word, a sense of moderation, because when you're talking about the Iranian leadership, everything's relative, right? Yes, he's a moderate in relation to the very hard line theocratic clerical establishment in Iran under the iron rule of the supreme leader, the Ayatollah. That said, he has said, his words were that he hears the legitimate demands of the people, and he wants to address them. He actually ordered one of his government ministers to start to initiate some process for a dialogue with both union officials and traders, and that's significant. So he wants to establish some sort of two-way back and forth there. That said, the evidence on the street so far and the reports we hear on the street are that you've had reports of live ammunition used in some instances, especially on New Year's Eve on December 31st in a couple of instances, and you've had water cannon being used at some protests. The irony, the sharp paradox there being that water cannon at a time when Iran is in the midst of a severe water shortage crisis. So they're using pretty firm methods, and other officials are sounding less conciliatory, basically saying that we are not going to let anyone exploit this situation to put law and order in the Islamic Republic at risk. So yeah, the president is striking a conciliatory tone. Can it hold? It's clear that right now they don't want a repeat of 2022, the last big protests when you had basically the death of a young Iranian woman who had been detained because she fell afoul of the morality police's version of how you should wear a headscarf in Islamic hijab.